WHIP,
Philadelphia,
an iHeart radio station.
Legendary basketball coach and now ESPN analyst, and that's Seth Greenberg. Seth, great to see you. How are you?
This is big, live and in person. This isn't over the phone. This is huge for me. I mean, whip radio is big. I understand that. And you, come on, Zach, come on. It doesn't get any better than this.
And that's Jim Nantz of CBS.
Well, it's amazing, that here you are in college. You look what you're doing at your age. It's pretty phenomenal. I mean, I started working for my campus radio station my sophomore year, but I didn't have the form that you do now.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
It's time for the main event with Zach Gelb and Mike Zahn on WHIP.
Let's do it.
Let's go!
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of WHIP Radio here in Philadelphia. Welcome to the main event. Zach Gelb and Mike Zahn here with you. David Fenster will join us in a little bit as it is a Tuesday, April 5th, 2016. And we have an action-packed show for you today at 11:20. The head coach of Harcum College, a Villanova graduate and also a graduate assistant on that Villanova staff, Drew Kelly, will join us as he went there from 93 to 97, as he'll hop on board a few minutes and recap an exciting national championship game last night. And I'll be honest with you, Mike, I sat there and I watched that game last night. The final minute was just absolutely the best final minute of basketball that I have ever seen. You take a look at that last few sequences. You had the big shot by Marcus Page, the acrobatic, miraculous three-pointer to tie the game up at 74-74. You have Bill Rathry screaming, "Ooh, onions!" And then there's 4.7 seconds left. But before that clock would tick, you had to wipe up some sweat off the court. And Daniel Oshefu took the mop out of the ball boy's hand, started going at it on the court. And the big reason he did that was he wanted to make sure that court was dry because he sets a screen for R.J. Diacono. Diacono drives to the top of the key, dishes it off to a wide-open Chris Jenkins, and you get more onions and a buzzer beater for a national championship victory as Philadelphia has a national champion in the Villanova Wildcats. Just what a game we witnessed last night, Mike.
It honestly was one of the better games I've seen. It's a little hard for me to even rank it against other games because in recent memory, it's been the best game I've seen. I do think that, when you want the theatrics, you get a game-winning buzzer beater at a national championship. That's what everyone dreams of. I mean, you saw the reaction on Twitter of people just saying that is what you dream about. You go in your driveway, you and your friends, you count down 3, 2, 1, and off your back foot, you try and toss one in and see if you can get the game. Yeah, but you see if you can get the game-winning shot. The crowd goes wild, and you know what? Chris Jenkins got to do it on the biggest stage in Houston, Texas. Very exciting. It was quite a game. Certainly one for the ages. Whether it was the best game or second or third best game ever, that's a separate conversation. It is one for the ages for sure, and I hope everyone tuned in because it really was one for the ages.
In my 21 years of living, I've never seen a better basketball game. I was so engaged last night. I sat there and just the early start by UNC, they were lethal from three, and that's the worst three-point team in the historic history of a UNC basketball program. It's the worst three-point shooting team. They were on fire in the first half. Villanova got some late momentum at the end of that first half when they cut it to 5. And then Nova comes out in the second half. Both teams were a little sloppy, but then Nova goes on that run that they've been going on all tournament long. The dominating 19-7 run. We saw it in the game up against Oklahoma where they ran on a big 20-plus point run in the first and second half. You saw that stifling defense led by the head coach in Jay Wright. And a big key in this game, as we broke it down all week long, was going to be how UNC would defend the three-point shots of Villanova. Villanova backed it up with another good shooting percentage, getting almost 60%. They were at 58 point something. And then another big storyline was the battle in the paint. UNC got more rebounds, but Daniel Oshefu and the rest of those bigs for Villanova were able to win the battle in the paint on the scoring department, and Villanova wins another national championship, their first one since in 31 years in 1985, and they partied like it was 1985 last night at the campus of Villanova, and it was just, you see the family of that program. Rolly Massimino still comes to those games. Guys like Dwayne McClain, Chuck Everson, and they're celebrating with the team last night. And it was just something neat to see. And to have that game end in the fashion that it did, it is just something I will remember for the rest of my life. You will sit there in 30, 40, 50 years and you will say, I remember where I was the night Chris Jenkins hit that big shot. And you hit the nail right on the head. I saw Khalif Wyatt tweet it out. Every kid when they are young in their driveway with their basketball hoop with the chain net dribbles back and forth. 3, 2, 1. Boom! National championship winner. And now that is a reality for Chris Jenkins, and Chris Jenkins will never have to work a day in his life if he doesn't want to. He will never have to pay for a drink again in Philadelphia because everyone will remember him as the guy that hit the biggest shot on the biggest stage.
Not only will everyone remember the last 5 minutes of the game, but they'll remember obviously that last minute sequence where it was back and forth. Marcus
People
Page's
forget about Page's shot now.
Marcus Page's shot, and then it's Chris Jenkins' shot. It was very awesome to see. But I think one of the more underrated things that comes out of the game is Chris Jenkins picks up 2 early personal fouls, and I know I saw you on Twitter. You were saying, okay, you know what, he should probably stay out for pretty much the rest of the first half, and he stayed out for a good portion. Jay Wright brought him back for 2-3 minutes. He got 2 big buckets, and I think people may forget that, and it kind of got the offense back flowing again. Then they sat him down for the rest of the first half, and it just seemed once Jenkins came in, the rest of the offense was able to set up again. They were able to do what they needed to do. They were able to go into the break not down by a large margin as they were able to cut down that deficit from UNC. And then you know what? Jenkins, and obviously, you know, you can look at even Booth, who surprised a lot of us. They all stepped up to the plate. There wasn't one big star. Everyone will remember Jenkins' play and that he has the biggest shot in the program's history, and it really is the biggest shot in the program's history. But there's something to be said that everyone chipped in, the Oshefus, the Archidiakonos, and it went on and on. Even Jalen Brunson added some big minutes.
Really, on that final play, it is just unbelievable that in that spot, 4.7 seconds left, Archidiakono at the top of the key, that he is able to give that ball off to Jenkins in time, and Jenkins hits that shot. That just shows how smart of a guard and the awareness that Archidiakono has. And I was listening to Steve Lapis this morning talk about it, and Lapis said, I bet you Archidiakono wasn't even looking at the clock. He has a mental internal play clock installed in his brain. And that just shows how smart that kid is, that he is able to pass up that basketball to Jenkins, and then the rest is history. But you're exactly right. That sequence with Jenkins at the end of the half, if I was Jay, because you look at the game where UNC played Notre Dame in the Elite Eight, August picked up 2 fouls early. They sat him the rest of the half, and Notre Dame went into the half trailing by 1. And if you at that time, Notre Dame saying, all right, that's a pretty darn good job. We're missing our best player. And then on the other end, Jay saw it was starting to get a little bit out of hand. He puts Jenkins back in the game, gets the bucket, and I believe it was 2 free throws. And then he goes out, and then they eventually had that bucket at the end of the half.
And it was a 4-point swing because UNC wasn't able to make it.
Yes. It was a big swing in that game. And when you went into half, Villanova fans felt the momentum shifting, and they felt, all right, we're going to have a ball game. And that first half was just punch for punch, and then it gets into the second half. Nova goes on that powerful 19-7 run, and then UNC, and this has been a tournament of seniors, remember, as this has been a tournament of veteran guys, and then all of a sudden, you have a situation where UNC then goes on their 7-0 run. UNC fought back in that game. They were resilient. They had the heart of the champion. And when Page hits that shot, everyone's thinking if this game goes to overtime, you would think UNC would win the game. And Roy Williams and Marcus Page, I heard them say it after the game. Page said it. All we had to do was play defense for 4.7 seconds, and we're going to be national champions, because they believed, and so did I, if that game went to overtime, that UNC would have won. But the rest is history. Oshefu, the mop man, that is going to be a clip that you're going to see for years to come. They mentioned that 85 team. They talk about the pasta speech back when Villanova played UNC in that Elite Eight game when Rolly Massimino went into the half and said, I just want a big bowl of pasta with white clam sauce. Now, when people look back at this championship, they're going to show Oshefu mopping the floor, then Arcidiacono driving, the pass to Jenkins, boom, onions, Villanova's a champion.
And you know what? They honestly deserved it. They shot the lights out. We had mentioned yesterday on our show that if Villanova were to win, or if they shoot as well as they did against Oklahoma, they would obviously win. We didn't expect them to shoot as well as they did in that Oklahoma game, but they shot pretty darn well, and I know you have the numbers of how well they shot all tournament long. This Villanova team, for as good as UNC played throughout the tournament as well, Villanova, round after round after round, big shot after big shot, just monumental game-winning shot by Jenkins, capitalizes off of everything. It caps it all off, I should say, where he's able to hit a shot in a big-time scenario. And the truth of the matter is that if Jenkins misses that shot, I happen to agree with you. I do think the Tar Heels, they have the momentum, and especially the idea that if Jenkins misses that shot, now Villanova's thinking, we had a chance to win, now it's going to overtime. We could have decided this game if we hit this shot, and if he doesn't make it, then UNC's feeling, okay, we have a second life, here's another 5 minutes that we can put on the clock and try and win the game. Instead, obviously, everyone knows Jenkins hits that shot, game over, Villanova wins the national championship.
Versus UNC Asheville, they shot 57.9%. Versus Iowa, they shot 59.3%. Versus Miami, they shot 62.7%. Their worst shooting performance of the tournament came against Kansas. It was 40.4%. Then they went up against Oklahoma, 71.4%, and that was just shy of the record in the 85 championship game. And then last night, they were able to back it up with 58.3%. And the most dominant player in that game was Booth, who in 25 minutes was 6 of 7 from the field, 2 of 2 from behind the arc, 6 of 6 from the free throw line, and he had 20 points, a block, a steal, and only 1 turnover, and also put in 2 rebounds. Phil Booth was the difference maker in that game, and we talked about it yesterday. We said that in these championship games, there's always an X factor, and there's one player that you don't expect that has a career night. We've seen it in multiple sports, whether it was David Tyree, who couldn't catch a pass in practice leading up to the Super Bowl, has the big catch against the Patriots. You saw last year, Grayson Allen is a spectacular player. We know that, but no people really expected him to have the spark that he gave Duke last year up against Wisconsin. We see it year after year, and it was Booth's night last night. Like I said, he put in 20 points. Also taking a look at the stat sheet, in 32 minutes, Daniel Oshefu had 9 points. Jenkins had 14, nothing bigger than his last 3. Hart added in 12. Arcidiacono had 16. Brunson had 4. And Bridges, who, by the way, had 4 fouls and 2 points, that's an underrated 2 points. Because when he was in on defense, he made a difference. And Villanova's defense in the low post, the way they front the defenders, and they only held Bryce Johnson in that game to, I believe it was 12 points, 14 it was for Bryce Johnson. I'm surprised UNC wasn't able to assert their dominance more in the paint when it comes from a scoring production. Because we broke this game down all week long. And who would have thought that UNC would have shot the ball from 3 the way they did and wouldn't be able to win the battle in the paint from a point standpoint? That is something to me that I sit there and I look at that game, and it's something I won't be able to understand. Jay Wright, who had an enormous amount of pressure on him in this tournament, the way it has gone with this core the last 3 years, he shut up every critic. And Jay Wright goes from the good category, and I look back at my tweet from last year when they lost, I go, It's no disrespect to Jay Wright. He's a good coach, but he's not a great coach yet. And the reason is because he fell short of the expectations. Last night, Jay Wright goes from the good category to the great category, and it was the way he prepared his team all tournament long, the way they played spectacular defense, and they were able to go on these runs and shoot the ball just at an abnormal rate from the field and three. Now, what I want to do now, before we take a break and we get to our guest today, who's going to be joining us at 11:20, which is going to be in 5 minutes, and that's the head coach of Harcum College, and Drew Kelly, who was a graduate assistant at Villanova, also coached Kerry Kittles and did some work with that Villanova program and is a graduate of that institution. His whole family is a graduate there. Is I want to play you the radio call from Ryan Fannin, who is the voice of the Villanova Wildcats, and this audio is courtesy of IMG.
3 seconds to go across the timeline. 2 seconds to go. Jenkins, three, right wing to win it. He made it! He made the three from the right wing at the buzzer. Cats win it all! Cats win it all! Cats win it all! 31 years later, Villanova is the king of college basketball once again.
Just absolutely spectacular. Cats win, Cats win, Cats win it all. That was from Ryan Fannin. It was just such a good call. And by the way, Deadspin's got to get it right. They said he's the student radio broadcasters. As someone that is a student radio broadcaster, that's not a student radio broadcaster. And there was so many calls. You had the call in Russian. You had the call in Spanish. You had it on the Homer broadcast. You had it on the national broadcast with Nance, the ESPN national broadcast. It's like, oh, geez whiz, how many calls we're going to get? Westwood One, Kevin Kugler did a really good job as well. But the best call is right there from Ryan Fannin because that is pure emotion, and it just perfectly describes one of the greatest shots I've ever seen.
And obviously, as I've been saying this whole show, Villanova deserved to win. They were the better team. But there were a couple miscues on their end, too. I couldn't believe Ryan Arcidiacono threw that ball away inside that final minute. There were a couple plays.
It's pressure.
And they trapped him really well, and he turned it over. You mentioned how stifling the Villanova defense was against UNC, but we were talking about it a little bit before the show, and I was having a conversation with Tom Hansen. I agree with him. For as good as the defense was of Villanova, UNC was turning over the ball a little too much without pressure. There'd be times where they'd catch the inbound pass, a guy would be on him, and then they'd almost shake and then lose their footing. Miscues on both ends. Villanova ultimately ends up being the champion. Again, not taking anything away from them. You know what I've been saying all week long, and you know what? I actually think it's a little funny coming to me because I think since the Sweet 16, I have picked Villanova to lose every single round.
I picked them to win every round.
So you know what? Shame on me. I'm being honest. I'm owning up to it.
You make a lot of predictions in this business. Most of them are wrong for both of us.
Understood. So there it is. But I'm owning up to it. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, I thought Villanova would win. They're a heck of a team. They proved a lot of people wrong. They're not just a good team. This team specifically was great, and they are national champions.
They went on a run that is legendary. They went on a perfect run, and I couldn't be more happier than for a man like Jay Wright, who overcomes all this criticism and now is a national champion, joining the legendary Rolly Massimino in that same class at Villanova. 215-204-WHIP is the number. Zach Gelb and Mike Zahn rolling along here with you, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk more Villanova as Harcum College's head coach, Drew Kelly, will join us.